This is Songwriting in the All Together with David Rangel, Sohail and James Bar Bowen. In March 2020, as COVID-19 began to stalk the land in earnest, lockdown was declared in the UK and all the gigs were cancelled. We are three songwriters, musicians and performers who happen to live next door to each other in West Yorkshire. And so we decided that in the absence of performance opportunities, we would get together once or twice a week to share some songs and to enjoy each other's company. Gradually, this evolved into a songwriting circle, and we talked more about the craft and industry of what we do to write songs. This series of podcasts is a product of these sessions and conversations.
Songwriting in the All Together, episode 2. So, for those who didn't actually catch episode 1, I'm David Rangel. I'm also joined by James Bar Bowen and Sohail Khan, and we have been collectively doing our own little, songwriting workshops during the whole COVID-19 outbreak because we haven't been able to gig, quite frankly. So we thought, how are we going to play music to each other? How are we going to, just at least get stuff off our chests and sing and whatever, and we'll just do it to each other for the time being and see how it goes along. So, welcome, gents. Hope you're all okay. How are you?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Episode 1 was What Makes a Great Song, and this is a follow-up, which is songwriting workshops in general. So what we've got is James Bar Bowen, who's going to talk to us about the songwriting workshops that he has done before, and also we've got Sohail Khan talking about workshops from a slightly different background, which is theatre and writing. So James, we're going to go straight over to you. You're going to play us a song to begin with, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to play a song that actually what came out of our sessions, because we've been setting each other a little bit of homework or sharing ideas and saying, right, okay, let's try and put this into practice fairly soon. So one week we said, right, okay, try and write a song or finish a song that you'd said you were going to do. So I had been collecting some words and some ideas, and about an hour before one of our sessions on a Thursday afternoon, I thought, okay, I need to get on and do this. So I did. So hopefully following some of my own advice and also some of the advice of you guys about how do you write a song, how do you get your ideas down on paper, what do you do to get the ideas more formed into a song, and this is one that came out. So shall I give it a play?
Yeah, go for it.
And I think it's called Breathe In, Exhale, and the riff is a fairly unadventurous folky riff, and the song follows a fairly normal structure of, A part, B part, chorus, A part, B part, chorus, A part, B part, chorus, chorus. Okay. Which we'll go on to a little bit more when we get round to it.
Yeah, sure.
I'll play you some first.
Yeah,
let's give it a go. All right, thank you. Now correct me if I'm wrong with a story or a song. Someone said to take it to the edge. Rising pressure, filling time, like feeling past your prime. A fear of free will falling from the ledge. Cut your cloth, put yourself into the trough. Fan flames at the point of no return. The best seats in the house for those who've got no nous. Snake oil salesmen watch our cities burn. Someone said to turn into the bees, rising pulse rates, raising pain, and working through the pain. Memories mutating by degrees. Stake your claim, let others do the same. Turn the dial up way beyond the mind. an object if you like, to an unexpected spike. Someone said statistics seldom lie. Raise your hand and feel for mine. We're searching for a sign. The rules of social context still apply. Call my bluff, with tales are just enough. Feel the fear, but do it anyway. The camera never lies, you see it in their eyes. A naked truth so rarely on display. Breathe in, exhale. Breathe in, exhale. Breathe in, exhale. Breathe in, exhale.
Yeah, nice. Very nice one. Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I want to kick off there with it there is obviously you did bring that to the actual songwriting workshop in itself. So you did say that was your homework. You went away, you did it, and you crafted it. So we did hear it in its bare bones when it was pretty much a day old. Not even that, was it?
It was an hour old.
It was an hour old. So, but all I can say is, like, you know, it's clearly worked because it hasn't changed too much, has it? I don't think there's many lyrics or any lyrics, in fact, that have changed too much.
Pretty much. I mean, that is a slightly second draft, and I've worked on, you know, getting the, you know, just kind of squeezing the words in to fit in with what I'm trying to do. And sometimes that means losing some words or adding some words or adding some syllables, because I feel a really important point about a well-crafted song. The rhythm of the words are as important as the rhythm of the music. And it's kind of like, you know, and sometimes like using tricks that you might borrow from poetry or whatever, but just trying to get that, you know, in English language, obviously you can lose syllables quite easily, or you can run things together, or you can stretch things out. But I quite like to try and actually have the syllables on the beat, and then when you break with going on the beat, that might be for emphasis or something else.
Right.
But in the writing form, that would be something I would try and do.
So what's the story? And given that this workshop or this podcast we're doing is about story, what's your story in terms of the story that's going on within that song?
Well, I mean, very, very much. I mean, a lot of it was like plucking ideas out of the air about stuff that kind of comes from, you know, from the current coronavirus crisis thing. So there's a fair bit of reference to statistics and baseline scores, and but also the idea that I think all three of us would be fairly kind of sceptical about the way in which the politicians or the people who are in the media, how they play with ideas, how they sort of mould public opinion to go in certain directions. So it's quite a lot of stuff about that. You know, in some ways, I'm fairly optimistic about the fate of the human race in some ways, but also I would retain a massive dose of cynicism in there. So I think that the story in there is about retaining, in a sense, kind of retaining your ideas of how we integrate and work together as human beings, but also with a cynical view on where we're being pushed to, what we're trying to...
So with your idea of breathe and exhale, that's kind of like, for me, it's a very meditative term. There's almost sort of like, well, all this crap's going on around us, but, you know, let's take a step back from it. We're aware of it, but, you know, let's pull along together. You know, the political situation doesn't really ever change. You know, it's always them and us.
Yeah, in some ways. And the idea that, you know, in the last bit about, you know, raise your hand and feel for mine, we're searching for a sign. That's very much about, you know, we still have to work together as human beings, as friends, as communities or whatever, sort of irrespective of what goes on out there in the big bad world.
Yeah.
In some ways there's not a direct narrative in there. It's not a story. It's not like a, you know, one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, or you know, three bears go out for their morning walk while their porridge is cooling down, or whatever the story might be.
Yeah.
There isn't there isn't a story as such like that, but it's. I mean, I something I try to do in songwriting as well is to sort of create a certain ambiguity, and very much in there are occasional references to pronouns you and me or us, but mostly it's kind of statements of, and it's very much following the idea, the sort of storytelling idea and the songwriting idea of show don't tell. Show a situation and leave it to your audience to take from that what they will. And I've tried to do that, and I've tried to, like I say, leave some ambiguity so you can interpret what I've said in your own way. But obviously I'm also trying to push out, it's kind of a joke I always say on stage, even if you write a song that's specifically about something else, about a situation or whatever, of course we're singer-songwriters, so it's all about me really, darling.
So that's really interesting. So you don't have a narrative, like strictly speaking, but there is still a story being told, and it's almost like bits of the story kind of coming in. So or bits of different stories always like kind of coming in to almost form one piece. So I think that's an important thing to take from this, to actually say like, well, you don't actually have to say like, well, it was me and I went down and I saw this girl and like we met and we kissed, or we held hands when we kissed and stuff. It doesn't have to be chronological or anything like that. It can just be a bunch of ideas pulled together to form an overall statement.
And it's I mean very much in that one's case, it's not you would struggle to try and pick out a narrative, but you might pick out that there's leading lines or cliches or statements that are hopefully.
And I was thinking about this very much direct address. It's about you and us and we in the song, isn't it?
Without actually saying so.
Yeah.
Which again is a a sort of a game that I sometimes play, because I find that sometimes when songwriting, it's almost a game I play with when I go to a gig, and you get somebody who says this is a song about me, and it's every second line is I this, I that, I this, I that, and I'm thinking, well, you also have to draw me into this equation. It can't all be about you. It's got to be somewhere shared, or if it is about I, then it has to be the sort of universal subjective where we can all get a sense of, we can all feel these things, and either we can agree with them or disagree with them, but it is throwing it out there. And and some of the great songwriters, whether love them or hate them, but like Dylan or like Leonard Cohen or someone like that, that's what I think they do really well, is they tell stories which aren't necessarily directly going to you're unclear as to who it's about, but ideally you feel a sense of that I'm in there as well.
Right. Okay. So when let's go back to the songwriting workshops that you've done. When you approach a songwriting workshop and the participants there, are they getting this information from you? Is this how you sort of describe things, like there are no particular rules? You don't have to do it just this one way. You can do it another way, and you can do another way. How do you approach your participants, and how do you say to them like, this is how you structure it, and this is what you do? I mean, do you talk about the story first of a narrative, or do you talk about the music, or is it a bit of balance?
What I tend to do is because I have got a load of songs that I've written over the years, and quite often they come from different places. So sometimes I may start with a story or a narrative, or some words, or a chorus, but sometimes it's almost like a rhythmic one. I have one song, and I started off just with an idea that I wanted to use that sort of ska beat thing, which goes boom chick, boom chick, chick boom chick, boom chick, boom chick, and thought, okay, I'm going to play the guitar like that. And for a long time, I then evolved a kind of a chord structure and a melody round that. But it took me years to actually get the finished product of the words, and there are. I tried different ways into it, and I knew what I wanted to write about, and then it became a something that again you can when you hear it, you can hang a narrative on, because in a sense we're all storytellers, as songwriters, but also as audiences. We're always looking for sort of progressions of meaning. Yeah.
Like a lot of things in life. What is the meaning of life?
Exactly.
People go for that reason. Like, what does your song mean? Well, what does this represent? And what does this artist represent?
Yeah, and so it's often it's kind of almost like a game of saying, I think this song is about this, But if you think it's about something else, that's absolutely fine. So that's kind of like, so as in terms of the, talking about writing it, I would say it's quite useful to have a few almost like touchstones in there that you are going to draw on to try and make sure there's a bit of that in there and a bit of that in there, so that there is some sort of thread that runs through it. But it can also just be random thoughts. And again, that's I kind of have an idea that there's, lyrically, I have about 3 different ways of writing a song. Sometimes they're stream of consciousness, which this is a bit of, although I think it's a little bit more structured than
it's coherent.
Yeah,
like when it's stream of consciousness, that would be like James Joyce. What's the book?
Yeah,
Ulysses.
Yeah. But then, whereas there's sort of then there's the very clearly a narrative, which I think is very specifically kind of an American songwriting thing, possibly more than the European one. In that a lot of, it's almost if you go to a classic country song or whatever, there will be a very clear narrative, and also, often a love song or something might tell a story, situate you down in a position, and then push it on from there.
Right. Okay. So you teach them about, either way. You teach them about, you can do it one way or another way or something. Just experiment. But I presume that you talk about structures as well and how they come round and everything else like that. Yeah. Do people usually, are they usually aware of it, or do you have to kind of drill it in and say like, no, you have to have a section A, a section B? And of course, always the rules of songwriting is that they're always there to be broken. But if you want to sort of take an idea, one of the very good songwriting workshop I went to was one where they did it as a recipe, and they did say that the recipe is, you might have an intro which might be, an ooh bit, which I know your song that you're going to play today does a bit of that. Spoiler alert.
Or an instrumental introduction. You then might have a verse, because that's where you're starting to tell the narrative. You might have a development of the verse, which, as we call it, the A part goes into the B part, and then you might have a chorus, which often is possibly a summing up of where we're at the moment, or in breathe in, exhale. Hopefully, it's an opportunity, literally, for the audience to breathe in and exhale before we go back in and attack the sort of the subject matter. And then obviously there's the concept of the bridge, or the middle eight, whatever you want to call it, which often is used as an opportunity to take a different perspective on the same situation, and possibly a different way of sort of summing up, maybe to look at it as somebody else might see it, or a way of saying this is where we're at now. And then you go back into the story, or you go back into the chorus.
Right.
And then at the end, the chorus is again almost a chance to. I mean, a chorus I often feel is quite. It goes into something that's bigger but less complicated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you get what I mean?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Big overall thing. Well, thanks very much for that. I'm going to move on to Sohail. And see what you've got to say for yourself. I mean, you're going to sing us a song. You do a cappella, for those that don't know. Andy plays guitar with Sohail, so they're part of a double act, I like to say. They are a comedy duo
and
as well.
he's in teaching lockdown right now, so he's unable to make it with us right now. I'll be singing this song a cappella.
We are guideline-abiding citizens generally, so we're
doing all the social distancing
when it makes sense.
I'm having to shout at you over there, Sohail.
a long way away.
So what are you going to sing for us today?
Well, I'm going to sing a song that came out of our working together, and it's a very simple song, but it has a story in it. It's a very simple story, but then again, it's almost in the form of a nursery rhyme, almost, and we'll talk a little bit about the structure of it afterwards. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and sing it, and then we can talk about it.
What's it called?
Yeah. It's called Little Bird Flying.
Little Bird Flying.
Little bird flying to the other side, flying so fast against the deep divide. Little bird flying so very long, little bird flying to sing its song. Little bird flying across the river so wide, Why do you leave the other side? Why do you fly so fast and strong? Do you fly to the place that you belong? This river is made of all people's tears. Its waters are made from their hopes and their fears. The dusk is falling and the current so strong. Can you cross through to sing your song? Little bird, you're not halfway there. Little bird, you're tiring and falling near. Your wings are aching and your heart beats fast, close to the waters that are filled with the past. Little bird flying, can you keep pace? I wish upon you all the love and the grace. The far shore land you seek is not made. Its earth has no use for the gown and the blade. Little bird flying so very long, little bird flying to sing its song. This river is wide as this river is deep. Oh, little bird, do you want to sleep? Little bird flying to the other side, flying so fast against the deep divide. Little bird flying so very long, little bird flying to sing its song.
Very nice.
Very good. Lovely.
Very good. So hell, let's go straight on with what's the story then? What's the narrative going on in there? I mean, I'm getting a lot of good imagery there. I'm seeing the bird. I see a valley. I see the bird flying over this lovely water, which is interesting. I did hear a juxtaposition in there because it's it's a river of tears, right? Is that the quote? Is that the line?
The river is made of all people's tears.
All people's tears, yeah.
The waters are made from their hopes and their fears. So the song is very simple. It's a very simple story. It's a little bird flying to the other side of a river, and is it going to make its way to the other side? And that's the story. That's the story of the song. And within it are some questions. Why did you leave the other side? Why do you fly so fast and strong? And you fly to the place that you belong. So there's a journey in there. So there's a journey, but the journey's unfulfilled because we don't know in the song whether or not the little bird
Is
makes
it
it
literally about a little bird flying over a river?
I thought there's more depth to it
Is it
than
all
that.
metaphorical or what?
Well, it's partly metaphorical. I mean, it's the river is made of all people's tears. Coming back to that, the river is the world or life, if you like.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what it's trying to cross on. The little bird could be, you could have personification in there, where the little bird is you, me, or everyone, or the human race, basically.
Yeah.
And it's trying to fly to sing its song, and what its song is, we don't know, and it's trying to find a place to belong to sing that song.
So to throw back at you then,
Yeah.
where did this story come from? Why this story?
Well, it comes from an actual thing that happened. which caused the initial kind of spark or initial image or the story. And actually, at the time when I was actually in the place where I was watching this little bird, I was in the Gambia. I was on doing a project, and we were coming across the River Gambia in a boat in Africa, in West Africa, and it's a very wide river that divides the country. And as we were coming across on the boat over to the other side, there was a little bird flying. And the drone of the engine started me thinking about a song. And so this happened in 2006. And that image has always stayed with me. And also because I was kind of looking at this little bird flying desperately and keeping pace with the boat as we were going. And at a moment I looked away, and then I looked back and the little bird had gone. So I don't know what happened to the little bird, whether it had fallen into the river or it just flown in the other direction. And there was also a current. It's not in the song, but there was a wind current coming against, and dusk was falling, and it was getting darker and darker as we were crossing over. And it just struck me as a kind of a metaphor, really, and a story in itself. And then that's just been kicking around inside my head for all that time. And the melody's kind of stolen from all sorts of places.
So the experience that you had then, it was interesting because like you had an experience in your life, but then you had another experience in your life which you glued those two together. You kind of said like, that reminds me, or that's a really good analogy, a good metaphor that I can use, to run with this experience that happened and stuff. So yeah, that's.
I think it had. To me, it has a really nice. Kind of juxtaposition of that it's quite optimistic and quite hopeful.
Yeah.
But it's also really hard.
It's
You
hard.
know, and it's possibly, like you say, possibly the little bird doesn't make it.
Yeah.
And that's...
But also in the song, the land that it flies to has not yet been made. So that's the kind of, the land you fly to has no use for the gun and the blade. So within that, you're kind of playing with a real situation, but then you're also playing with lots of, again, metaphor, a lot of putting the story into a place which is almost mythical in a sense.
A journey into the unknown in it, in kind of way.
Yeah.
I suppose like chasing the American dream, that old idea. You know, like in that Of Mice and Men. And I mean, I'm dropping my literature today, aren't I? Wow.
Have you read a book, Dave?
So exactly. It's the idea of like kind of chasing. So that's the harmonious side behind it. That you're like, that's where I get all the imagery from. It's almost like, you know, this bird is hopeful. It's flying, you know, through the valley. It's like that freedom, that feeling that I like to have when, you know, we're here in Huddersfield, when I'm on the moors and stuff like that. It's just, but it's also like an escape. It's almost like escape from. Very much aware that the River of Tears, for example, is everything that's going on outside. You know, you look out your window, the hustle bustle of everyday life, and then you can just escape that for a little while, and you can always dream, and you can always say.
It's also about dilemma as well. I mean, it's like coming from my background. Everything is story, as we've kind of discussed already. Everything is story in life, and when I'm working with people, lots of people, different people from different groups, a lot of that is how you make up story with people, and that's what I'm doing, and everyone's got stories inside of themselves. So it's coming to that kind of point where you kind of trying to, what is that about? It's about dilemma and struggle, and everyone can identify with dilemma and struggle and hopes, and having hope,
So can we move on a little bit to the nuts and bolts of the, you know, in a sense it's a poem, and quite often songs are
poems,
poetic. So what have you done there that you think, you know, makes this into something?
Structurally it's very different to yours, you know, it doesn't have a chorus to come back to.
Well, it's got a very clear journey, hasn't it? It's got a journey in the song, even though there's a return back to the first verse.
And there's a lot of repetition.
And a lot of
repetition of Little Bird Flying.
But there's questions in it. So you've got questions to the bird, which then make people reflect on their own situations and what they're thinking about. You've also got statements about the river. The river is made of all people's tears. Its waters are made for their hopes and fears. Then you've got situation again. The dusk is falling, so the darkness is coming, and that could be death. You know, that could be the end of the line, and we all face the end of the line at some point. That's the one certainty that we have all got in common, is that we are going to go at some point. And can it still cross over to sing its song? What is its song? I don't tell you what the song is. And it's twice in this song is the idea of the song. It's trying to cross over to sing its song. It's trying to cross over to the land where it belongs. So again, you've got a lot. It is the unknown, as you were saying, Dave. But it's also about what is that song it's trying to sing. And we all have a song. We all feel that we have some importance in life, whether that's our families, ourselves, trying to our ambitions, our dreams and our hopes, and what we want to make of ourselves, or what we feel that we have to overcome in order to find some kind of peace or resolution within ourselves. And that's kind of what this song is about. It's about that mystery. It's very much about the mystery. So you have the imagery of the dusk falling, the bird flying. It's flying into the unknown. It's flying into a land that's not made. And it's asking questions of the audience and hopefully giving them some openness and space to get the images of what's actually happening within that story.
And if you before you sang it, you said it's a bit of a kind of nursery rhyme. Why do you say that? What is that?
Well,
to do
because
with
it's the
rhythm.
rhythm. Because everything rhymes in the song as well. So that's a trick that you can use. I think especially when you get stuck with music, is just find a load of rhymes. Find things that rhyme with an image, and then you find the key into the next verse.
And the rhyme might be an unexpected one.
And
then it gives you an unexpected semantic.
I mean, I think that's an important thing to note, because what you haven't done is you haven't done the verse chorus thing, the late thing, like the song that you showed us last week.
It's only going up and down basically, melodically.
But I think like just for people listening and people who are constructing songs as well, talking about that idea of what we when we have an idea and it doesn't actually have to follow a specific or that kind of recipe, if you will, you can do it this way around. I mean, there's like the first song that comes to mind is Subterranean Homesick Blues, that does a similar thing, just prose after prose after prose. So interestingly, there's something about this, like I say, like a nursery rhyme. It's still catchy. You can still sing along to it, and it's still a song. So that's a big takeaway. We've got two quite contrasting songs. This one's talking about a bird in the third person, as opposed to the more political ideas that you've got in your
the contrast
song,
is statements, I would say, and journey. Yeah, if I was to kind of break it down, yours is a series of statements that you can agree with or not agree with. Mine is about the journey, and I think there's other ways of looking at song. It can be about your emotions sometimes, or it can be about, again, the idea of going from somewhere and coming to somewhere, belonging.
So I want to talk a bit more about the background of your writing, because it's as far as workshops go, it's theatre and writing predominantly, but of course you are a singer.
It's devising. It's basically taking material from people about either old stories or new stories or their own stories, and then finding a way of devising them so they get reenacted.
So you find it's quite circular, all this, that it all ties into each other, like the theatre, the writing, the music as well.
It's all the same. To me, it's all the same. You're making story. Again, it's coming back to what you guys were saying before. It's all story, because we make story as human beings. We're naturally inclined towards making stories. We all have a story about ourselves and about the way that we live our lives, or our heritage, or what we want to aspire to, or where we think we're going in life. And we all make story. That's just what we do as human beings.
So this is your first point. If you were to deliver a workshop in that regard, or if you were to come to
if someone was to say, I don't have any story, I'd say, you've all got stories. Tell me about yourself. And there's games and exercises you do where you just
could you give us a couple of examples of?
All right, well, I can do you. When you do get an example. Okay. So you're just going to talk about this podcast, and you're not allowed to stop talking until I ask you, tell me about. And then you have to talk about that one word that I ask you to tell me about. So start talking now.
So I can talk about. So
tell me about talk.
Talk. The idea of self-expression for me, talk is really important.
Tell me about important.
Important means the things that sort of stand above.
Tell me about above.
Above would be sort of being able to take perspective on things from a distance. So sometimes it's not raw emotion.
Tell me about emotion.
Emotion, well, that's the things that make your stomach crunch up, or make you relax, or make.
Tell me about relax.
Relax is a difficult one. Anyway, I think you
can extemporize it. Tell me about when you relax. I relax when I'm at home with my cat.
Right, so there's layers to it. There's layers to it like that. You get them to define what that is, and then you relate it to that person. That's really. Can we get another round of applause actually for a bit of a demonstration? A bit of a workshop demonstration there. Oh, fantastic.
Currently, I'm not available for work.
Right. except when you are.
I'm not available for work. That's to the record, because I'm not available for work.
Okay. Right. So. We will come on in.
We'll come on tomorrow. I think what we could do is now talk to Dave, and we could draw all this together a little bit, and I think that would work really nicely. So I'm going to ask you, Dave.
Okay.
So you come from a performing background, and you've been performing ever since you were very young, weren't you?
I think my first gig. I think I was 15. Yeah, 15 when I did my first gig in front of not my school. Like an independent gig.
And how old are you now?
I am 32. So yeah, it's been a while. So,
and coming from because I think musically we all listen to a wide range of different sorts of music and lots of different inputs. But you could give us a bit of a background of what kind of music you listen to, and therefore probably what kind of songs you try and construct from that.
Yeah. So the main song that I played last week was sort of a alternative rock influenced by folk. I don't like to call it folk music because it's not strictly folk. It wouldn't be genuine, but it's alternative rock. There's a lot of folk influence in there. So a lot of my favourite artists growing up have sort of been on the sort of rock side with just bit of alt to them, like Tori Amos. I've like my Nine Inch Nails, like Tool as well. So there's all those kind of different influences going on, nice and soft. But the song that I'm going to play today is more from the era of growing up, so it's a bit more grungy as well, because what I wanted to do was play something from my youth. And I think I was 17 when I wrote it, possibly 18.
And this is a personal narrative as well, isn't it, this song?
Yes, it really is. And the ideas about how... Well, I could go into it in a bit more depth after I played it for you, but it's definitely sort of it's a bit more detached. It's a personal thing, but it's a bit more detached, and it is something which is more sort of for the people again. So it can relate something to you. It can relate, to you as well, like that. Yeah. That's the invitation that I want to give. So the reason why I want to play this song is because, like I say, it is quite old, but it was actually at the start of my songwriting career, to use the term loosely, because I was still at school, but I was constructing these songs. The first batch weren't very good, and then the band said, yeah, we'll settle for those are good, that's our set where we're going. So it's going to be a song from that. The song's called Seizure, from my first band, The Crave. And the reason why I want to play it is, like I say, to demonstrate, first of all, where I was at that age, and second of all, just to maybe explore if anything has changed, like in the last 15 years as well, because I'm not one for delivering songwriting workshops, but I do have a background in performing and as well as managing some bands as well. So
except you are delivering a songwriting workshop even as we speak.
Yes, exactly. So that's it. So I've kind of informally kind of landed in it, and I don't see myself the same as you guys who are actually given sort of formal ones, but it's interesting to know that. Again, these principles.
But before you play, also you've had a hand in mentoring bands as well, so you can talk about that as well, I think.
Yes, band management as well, exactly. Developing them as well. So, just making sure that I'm still in D. And I'll play you the song then. So this is Seizure. I hope you enjoy. Okay. heaven's sake, won't you play with me? With me, with me
Wow, you had me rocking in my chair there, Dave. So that song's all about chatting someone up, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So it's hitting the town, painting the town red, hitting on chicks at the bar.
Well, tell us all about that song, Dave. Come on.
Right.
Where's it come from? Where's it going? And how did you start with it? And what's the story behind it?
That's a lot of questions. Where did it come from?
Yeah, what's the story?
What's the story? The story is about almost a reflection on things going on around me at that age. It was, adolescence, 17, 18, you're still trying to figure things out, but there's a lot of things that kind of come with that. There's a lot of problems when it comes to sort of trying to identify what you are. There's a lot going on. You're trying to, maybe chase girls, or you're going to parties. You've got your exams on your mind and stuff like that. And a lot of it's very, very sort of, go. Let's try and do the best what I can. Let's try and be the best that I possibly can be. So let's get that grade. Let's get a girlfriend. Let's impress my parents and all this sort of stuff. On the other side of things is the darker side, the fact that you've got that expectation, and then sometimes you get up and you just don't want to go. You just don't want to do it. You don't want to play this game. And I don't know if that's the same for everybody, but I certainly felt or fell into a sort of situation where sometimes I just wouldn't be completely comfortable with it. I wanted to sort of question it. There was a lot of things going on, a lot of influences, some good, some bad. You don't really know yourself at the time. So I use the term seizure as a way to sort of describe, again, metaphorically, this idea of complete blackout. So I was listening to a lot of shock rock at the time, and I was using a lot of shocking terminology and shocking analogies within it. So I need it to function as the opening line, but it's wasted on me. So the self-deprecation, it's this idea of being maybe addicted to something, maybe that's the idea of being in a relationship, maybe it's a drug or something like that. So when you say the song's about me, it kind of is, but a lot of it's not explicitly true. I might not have wanted or needed a drug or something like that. I may or may not have had that addiction, but the point is that it felt like one, I felt like I need to do this, I need to impress, I need to do this and that or whatever, I need to be in the best band, I need to, all this kind of thing. So the self-deprecation side is the depression that comes from it, the whole sort of well, is it any good? Is it worth it? Is there any point to any of all this? being programmed and futile, that's the next line. So, or I'm programmed and futile. So it's almost like, I feel like I'm just regurgitating. I feel like I'm trying to get through exams and I'm just trying to, I don't really know where this is all leading, So there's a lot of questions up in the air, and eventually, and I think a lot of teenagers will relate to this if there's any listeners, but especially university students, the anxiety you get. Sometimes it's just like the next line, stop these spasms in me. So it starts at a spasm. It's just kind of like, whoa, what's that? What's that feeling? Why my heart's skipped a beat,
I think, can I just interject?
Sure.
I feel that you sort of underestimate one thing that I think you do very well in the song is you sort of throw out a few, kind of cliches, but the idea about through my own stupidity, and it's almost like I'm trying to do these things, but I'm not worthy of that. I think those are absolutely universal. You might say that this kind of comes from a place of kind of almost teen angst, but I think one of the things for me why the song rises above that is because it speaks to me as a bloke it's a long time since I was a teenager. And I think that's...
I've always been a teenager. I don't think I've ever grown up.
Well,
perfectly honest.
So I would say, in some ways, because as we're looking at this, in terms of songwriting and what you think makes that stand up, and I think what I think all three of us would agree that takes it a sort of level up from just being another
It's going in lots of different directions as well. You've got that kind of like after that break, you've got this whole build going on, which is about, it sounds like you're wanting someone to be with you, basically.
Yeah,
and resolve everything for you in that moment, which it's kind of a very familiar thing, I think, to everyone, not just a teenager, but adults all the way through. You reach out for someone or something because you need them at that moment to kind of make you feel better or more stable, or give you some kind of relief of just being alone inside yourself, I think.
Yeah, and I think that it wasn't common for people to show their emotions that way, whereas I wasn't really afraid to do that. So it's this whole kind of idea of being alpha, if you're male in school, and even if you're part of this. Now, it's interesting when you talk about that, because the structure in itself and the song in itself is not of a style that but was particularly popular at that time, 2005-ish, I'm going to say. Indie was coming up, and if you really wanted to, please people, then you wore tight jeans and you were listening to Arctic Monkeys and trying to recreate that kind of music. So for me to basically say, like, no, this is what I stick to, and hey, this is how I feel, and you're going to get this raw emotion, you're going to enjoy it, and that was quite a bit heavy going. So I think it was this kind of idea of saying, like, look, I want to talk about the things that you guys curl up in your room over. So I want to talk about the things that, or maybe you don't, maybe you're blind to them. So I don't mean to bring people down or anything else like that. So it's a sort of like, but if you can relate to this, then I got you. I got you here.
But like I say, in terms of your songwriting craft, I think you underestimate that it is just raw emotion. It's raw emotion that you've then worked so that it touches other people. That it's not just me, which is a criticism I have of a lot of songwriters. That the idea is, of course, that you're trying to relate to everybody in the room.
Yeah.
And as a performer, that's kind of your job. Is also, it's not just about look at me doing my me thing, but this is all of us. We're in this together, sort of thing.
Well, yeah, this is exactly it. Yeah, it was specifically written for that purpose. So that's why I when I was talking about it, when people used to ask me about it, I never used to say anything about my music. I didn't say what's it about. I said, like, well, you tell me. That would be my answer.
I think that's a valid thing. It's like it also touches into coming into what we're going to talk about next week in terms of going against the grain. And this thing about having to explain, I think structurally it's better to talk about things structurally in terms of explaining yourself or what you are doing in order to get to that place. But sometimes it is that responsibility of the audience, or there is that thing that you're kind of giving it over to a large extent as well.
Yeah, you're saying it. This is a take on the world. Take it or leave it. Make of it what you will.
You don't like it.
But hopefully, the golden target for a songwriter is where you do manage to communicate. I mean, I see music as very much is about communication. It's about conversation, and doing a gig or something is about almost like a conversation where you, the performer, are in your thing, but other people are equally getting something quite kind of touching or emotionally challenging, or there's a sense of sharing. You know, that's kind of, you know, and as an artist in whatever art form, it is that thing about saying, this is what I've got, but I'm hoping that you also come with me on this.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I didn't want it to be, and I didn't just want it to please either. I did want it to just generally challenge that and say, look, you know, we're all out here trying to sell ourselves. We're all here, you know, trying to tell people look pretty, but we want to dance with them. We're all here telling people that everything's great and everything else like that. And I think, like, well, sometimes it isn't. You know, let's bring that balance in. So that was it. But I mean, if we compare that, if we start bringing this around to, like, you know, sort of a more modern or recent, I should say, stuff. You know, my song "The Swords and Me," that is explicitly sort of like, you know, more. This is how I feel. This is what I kind of want to get out and say, like, you know, I'm needing this withdrawal. You hassling me, or, well, I say hassling me. You know, I know that you care for me and everything, and that you want to talk to me and stuff like that. But what I need is that alone time right now. So that message is actually kind of me saying, like, you know, actually now I'm comfortable saying that, which might not actually be clear. You know, you might not be able to differentiate that just from hearing the song, and that's the interesting thing. So it's when it comes from the artist saying, like, well, this is the purpose behind the song. This is me telling you this is the purpose behind the song. This is the me song now. However, you know, it's not always going to be like that. So you can kind of play with that idea, I think, and you know, make of it what you will. But I think it's also important to recognise that the artist sometimes does have a pure intention and want that to be sort of known as well.
Yeah. Okay. If we can just maybe, do you want to say something about?
I was just going to say to talk a little bit as well about the. Actually, how you play it as well. That you've kind of got certain sort of rhythmical riffs that are that repeat on and come back round, and that are, I would say, from a specific kind of musical style. It's kind of it's quite a rock song style, if you broadly speaking. Did you start with a guitar riff? Did you start with some words? Did you start constructing this? You know, what did you do?
To my memory. Which fades by the day, but I'm pretty sure it was more about the drive and the sound of it than anything, because I was trying to recreate that Alice in Chains style, that, you know, grungy raw guitar, that hard hitting thing. I knew, because that was what we called the single from the EP or whatever else like that. So this had to be the song which basically, you know, hit people. Like I wanted it to feel like a punch. So I think that's the reason why, you know, I approached it that way. I kind of knew I wanted this driving these like little jagged sections in the pre-chorus and stuff. You know, it needed to be very, very
Kashmir.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, a little bit like that.
But then you do
drama. You know, I wanted to have some theatre to it. You know?
And then the dramatic thing, you know, interesting for me is in musically then is on there's the sort of instrumental bit in the middle, which is very much taking it down, and again that possibly giving your audience time to breathe, time to absorb what we've had so far before we go back into the hard hitting, the punchy bit.
I'm a bit of a yin and yang kind of guy, you know. You got to have one and the other, you know. Yeah. So I mean, that's exactly right. I realised that idea could get a bit stale. I knew the song was about 5 minutes, and I thought, well, you know, we're gonna have a section where we do take it down, and there is that big gap where it's like there's nothing really going on there, just like this riff over and over again. And so, you know, the stoner rock idea. I reckon if, like, you know, I kept playing that, kept going and going and going, you know, eventually we'd all just zone out, and you know, I could just burn some incense or whatever else like that, and, you know. But so that was it. I wanted to just mess with people's senses, not just with the actual narrative, but with the actual song itself, and say, like, look, you know, it doesn't have to be loud all the way, boom, 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 there's your single, done, gone. You know, it's something that can linger, it's something that can build, something that can grow, and something that
certainly has lots of different layers in it, both in terms of story and in musically, how it builds and how it changes and shifts, which is really interesting. It's kind of a really interesting juxtaposition and a very distinct contrast between what Bar was doing and what I've been doing. So we've kind of had your very kind of mission statement song.
In a sense, it isn't really.
Yeah.
It's not as clear a mission statement as some of my songs.
Right.
You know. take it or leave it.
And then you've had mine, which is more kind of poetic, very straight, very metaphorical nursery rhyme. And then we've had a very layered, kind of considered personal experience, but also reaching to the wider, trying to connect through that experience into the audience. So I'm just thinking maybe we should just talk about next week, perhaps?
Yeah, sure.
The next time we do a podcast, what we're going to do, unless there's anything else.
Yeah, so I would say, obviously we've raised lots of different things,
questions,
and we haven't explored them all fully. So this is the idea that this is a series of podcasts where we are going to hopefully explore and go a little bit deeper into some of these ideas that we're sort of throwing out at the moment. So next week
is going against the grain.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is writing something which you wouldn't normally write. And that could be for all sorts of reasons, because you want to do it stylistically, you want to write in a way, or maybe you're following somebody else's kind of light.
Yeah.
Or you're feeling, I want to write a song about this because I've never written a song about cats, for example. Cats are important, but I'm going to write a song. Or you're just going to write a song about cats. Or it could be about how the relationship that you have with your audience, talking about communication with the audience. I, for one, have got very clear idea. I'm going to be working on insulting the audience on all levels. Going against the grain of not pleasing the audience. That's where I'm going to be coming from next time we are together. So I have to go and busy squirrel away some writing. I don't know where you're coming from.
Well, having just heard that, believe it or not, I'm going to play a reggae piece.
Very good. Excellent.
But I'm not going to say any more. I'm not going to explain now why or how or when it happened.
Acoustic guitar reggae. There's
exactly.
Are you still gestating?
I'm still considering the options.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I've got 3 or 4 ideas of where I might go.
Well,
we'll see how it fits.
So brilliant. So until next time, goodbye from me, Sohail Khan. Goodbye from
David Rangel.
And goodbye from
James Bar Bowen. Great.
See you next time, guys.
See you next time. Bye bye.